Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Dick, and I'm here with some Big Kong energy. That is because I'm taking a look at the most recent build of the Donkey Kong 64 static recompilation from ThatGuyMcd. And you know, I talked about maybe about a week and a half ago that there are two different Donkey Kong 64 recompilation projects in development, and obviously I only have one to test, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And compared to the last time I talked about this one, the amount of improvements, innovations, and other quality of life improvements that it's seen have been absolutely massive. And honestly, it's making me want to play Donkey Kong 64 all over again. And I will go over some of the highlights here, but obviously we're going to have a full analog camera, and that is going to be a massive improvement, and I will definitely show you that in just a moment. But the camera in Donkey Kong 64, at least in my opinion, could absolutely fight you in the worst ways possible and make some jumps almost impossible to hit, and I never liked that whatsoever. Now you will see, whether you're on keyboard and mouse or on controller, you have full analog control and you have swap anywhere as well. So those are some of the biggest things that people have wanted in a Donkey Kong 64 recomp: a full analog camera and the ability to swap to any Kong at your leisure, and those are going to be in this build, and that honestly, at least in my opinion, swap anywhere is essential for the enjoyment of this game. Yes, it's still a collectathon no matter how you slice it, but I do enjoy that. But having to go back to a swap barrel to switch out your Kongs just sucked back in the day. It sucks in 2026, and it is great that this is going to be something featured in this static recomp. And honestly, it's one of those things. I don't know why Rare made it so incredibly difficult to swap your Kongs back in the day. I feel like it was just a situation where they wanted to say the game had X amount of hours of gameplay, but in 2026 we don't need to deal with that, and we don't have to here. Additionally, this is going to have multiple aspect ratios now. We're doing this in 16:9, but it's also going to have a Steam Deck 16:10 mode, as well as ultra-wide support, basically covering every single aspect ratio you could want compared to the original version of this video I did. And that definitely makes a huge difference as well, because I want to play these games at least in 16:9. I might say the ultra-wide gets a little bit too wide even for my taste, but for those of you that are going to want to experience it when this recomp is out to the public, it will be there for you. Please tell me down below, 4:3 or 16:9. I would be curious, because I know a lot of people out there, the purists, want to play these games their original aspect ratio. And the best part about a static recomp like this, or any of the other ones we have seen, is the fact you can really do whatever you want with them. You can play this in 16:9 with increased internal rendering resolution and a higher frame rate, or you could go 4:3, the internal rendering resolution, and just keep the higher frame rate, giving yourself basically the best of both worlds, that nostalgia as well as the more modern moveset and everything else we would get in here. Now, going through all of the different options, there's going to be even more in this build, and this is what you're going to experience when this is out. You will see that we have the basic N64 recomp menu here, but if we go under mods, that's where a lot of the stuff comes alive. You're going to have a save file manager, you're going to have texture replacements, and in just a few minutes I will show you a sample of what could be done even though it isn't finished. CRT filters are going to be built into the recompilation. The modern camera is going to be there, as well as tag anywhere, and that absolutely, at least in my opinion, has got to be the biggest innovation in Donkey Kong 64, not just in recomps, but in playing the game in and of itself. And the nice thing is the save file format is also portable, so I brought in a 100% complete file here, so I can kind of just navigate around the game and go anywhere I wanted at my leisure, which for somebody who has to capture a lot of games in a week, absolutely a big deal. And I'm sure it'll be something you will enjoy in the future as well. But Donkey Kong 64, as I've mentioned previously on the channel, is one of those games absolutely benefiting from a static recomp, and the fact that there's going to be two different ones out there means you're going to be able to kind of play either one you want, play them both, and kind of play around and see what's going on. And you can ignore the Windows Start menu opening up there, just because this does take over your mouse for the persistence of the window, so you can move your mouse cursor around and kind of move around the actual camera. And just leaving it here so you can see all of the different boxes animating in real time with that light swinging above you, with Diddy Kong down below. Everything looks exactly like Donkey Kong 64, at least to me, but you leave me a comment down below. But it's time to do the first of two soundtrack samples so you can hear the audio quality, and I'll be right back with a lot more Donkey Kong 64. I mean, it sounds like Donkey Kong 64 to me, but you tell me down below what you think about it. And again, as far as testing this, obviously it still isn't done, so the expectation here isn't perfection, but in my time with this most recent version, I had absolutely no crashing whatsoever. I had no issues as far as the screen cadence was concerned. As far as any latency in the controls, it just isn't there whatsoever. It just feels like playing Donkey Kong 64 in all the good ways, and maybe not all the bad ways, but all the rough ways as well. And that's just a reminder that a static recomp by default is not going to fix or sand down any of the rough edges that the game would have had when you played it back in N64. Sure, we can get widescreen, sure we can get better resolution, and we can get a lot of other features like tag anywhere, but some jumps that could be tricky back in the day are still going to be tricky here, and some areas of the game that if you were frustrated by them are going to have the same frustration levels. That's just basically to say that until somebody goes in and makes more mods to change how the game actually plays, it's a situation in which it's still going to be the original. But as far as this recomp running, getting some of those weird mini games that Rare popped in from their old computer days working, I just did everything it was supposed to, even if it's not something that I really even remember existing back in the day. But there's different mini games like this in Donkey Kong 64, and at least the ones I found seem to be working perfectly fine. When I hit start and quit game, it put me right back into Donkey Kong 64. But additionally, I did say that this is going to support full texture replacement, and this is kind of a work in progress, more sample pack for those textures. I don't want you to think that this video is about whether or not this texture pack looks good or not. It looks good in spots, but again, completely unfinished. It's about the fact that this is going to be available within the actual static recomp. So if you go down that laundry list of things we're going to be talking about getting when this releases, you have widescreen support, you have ultra wide support, as well as the Steam Deck's aspect ratio. You have the tag anywhere feature, you have a lot of improvements as far as how the game plays, and you're also going to get that full analog camera as well as texture support replacement, and that's all going to be in the first version you play, because obviously I'm testing it here and it does work. You also have that CRT effect filter that I left on the video just so you guys could see it, but do remember YouTube loves to compress these things way more than I would like them to, so sometimes it can be a little bit harder to see that compared to when I'm on my production monitors in my studio. But I will say this absolutely looks like a great version of Donkey Kong 64, and it just keeps getting better, and it is one of those games just absolutely benefits from all these improvements because it hasn't aged the most gracefully out of any N64 title, but it is still a ton of fun. And I know the developer on this one also has plans for some other Rare games out there in the future, so I think you're going to be seeing more of this stuff. And as far as when the other Donkey Kong 64 recomp's going to be out, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. I will cover it when it releases, like I do everything else. But as far as comparing the two together, you know I don't usually say one is better than the other just because I value everyone's work on these things. I definitely think everyone contributing to the N64 recomp sphere is doing a great job in and of themselves. So if you've heard of any of the quote-unquote drama on the internet for this one, just ignore it. That's not why we're here. It's not fun. The games are fun. One more soundtrack snip and I'll be right back. And if you notice there in the captures, some of the screen space effects are still going to be rendering at their 4:3 aspect ratio. That's because back in the day, that's what they were designed for, so it does take more work, and I'm sure that is coming to get some of those screen overlays actually drawing at 16:9 or even wider for ultra wide, just because when the artist developers are making this game, they made them for that aspect ratio, which is kind of interesting because this game technically did support 16:9 on N64, but it's been so long since I tested that for the Mr. FPGA core, I can't even remember what the screen space effects did there. So if you have any ideas, leave me a comment down below. I would be curious. But honestly, as I continue to test this one, it just keeps getting better and better, and it really makes me appreciate Donkey Kong 64 more because it removes all the struggles of quote-unquote enjoying that game on original hardware, because sometimes games don't age as well as our nostalgia tells us, and these recomps definitely keep that fun alive a little bit more. And because I am using FreeCam, in some instances, that can actually be more of a hindrance than a benefit, just depending on how the level is set up. But the nice thing is you can turn it on and off quickly, and at some point in the future we're going to have two of these things, and that is a win. But big thanks to ThatGuyMcd, definitely not the Loch Ness Monster, for sharing a new build. But short of that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.